Hi, it's Dylan from Schalke 04, and these are my 10 players to watch at Worlds this year. The list is not what I think is like the 10 best players at Worlds. I think it would probably be too stacked towards the top teams. To me, this is the players that I'm going to be watching myself or that I'm interested in. Some of it might be some personal bias, some of it might be because they're from my region, but I think mostly it's a mix of players from different regions, and it has to do with like play styles I'd like to see and players that I think are good or skilled. First couple of players are probably, to nobody's surprise, is going to be SHOWMAKER. I think this guy is really crazy. I remember watching this guy play before he even hit the LCK when we were scrimming this team when I was with Fnatic in 2018 Worlds. At a time, I think, where Korea was a passive region, this guy was just going for every single outplay, no matter what. And now I feel like he might be in contention for best player in the world, at least skill-wise. Number two, another mid laner, Knight from the LPL. Another crazy solo queue talent, mid lane superstar. Probably another player in contention, I think, for like best player in the whole world. Something that's interesting for me is he plays a lot of control mages. He was even still relying on the Syndra pick a lot in the LPL finals. What I'm interested to see is, does he play Syndra? Does the pick end up working out well for him in the World's meta? And if he maybe brings out some new picks, or if he sticks to like what is usually like his champion pool. Third player on my list is going to be Kanavi, the carry jungler superstar from the LPL. I'm really interested to watch him play because he has played almost exclusively carry junglers for most of the year. He loves Nidalee. Kanavi, obviously like the carry jungler at Worlds that everybody, I think a lot of players in the West, a lot of junglers like look up to him and study his VODs to try and see. But a lot of the Western junglers weren't able to make this work. So I would love to see like how the carry jungle meta evolves in the group stage, and if he's seeing success in carrying games like he does in the LPL, or maybe it's like hard for some players. But yeah, fourth player, I'm gonna go with SOFM. Jungler was Vietnamese, got drafted into the LPL a few years ago. And I remember SOFM was map splitting with Graves and invading level 1 and like doing all these crazy pathings, like I think years before this stuff became very, very commonplace in the meta. Like to me, I see him as like the original map split Graves, crossover mid and take both sides of the jungle and like perma pressure the enemy jungler. For a lot of junglers and a lot of like coaches that have been watching a lot of international play over the years, this is a player that they're really, really happy is at the World Championships. Next player on my list, NUGURI, another Dam1 player. I think they're one of the strongest teams. What I love about this guy, he really just plays to win the lane and plays very, very aggressive. Works well most of the time, works really, really badly some of the time. I've watched this player play a lot. He's another one of those like carrier feet sort of players, but he's extremely talented. Reminds me kind of like Bripo, how he plays the game. So yeah, I think he's one of the best players on the best teams, and he plays really aggressive, which is some top laners don't really play like this. So I'm gonna go with him for one of my other picks. Another top lane pick coming in next, 369. Chinese top laner. I think he probably was the strongest top laner out of China. I didn't pay a lot of attention to the role when I'm like watching VODs internationally, but I want to see him play Renekton and play lane and play really aggressive and set up dives. I think he's really good at setting up these dive scenarios with like combos like Nidalee, Renekton, stuff like this. This is another thing what I like seeing because these are strats that a lot of the Western teams had a lot of success or failure with, playing these sort of like Renekton, Nidalee, kill setup, dive top sort of situations. So I love seeing when these things go international because you get to see the clash of the styles and champion select and see someone do what they're best at versus players who like didn't have this as like the mainstay in their meta throughout the year. Next on my list is going to be REKKLES. Always mainstay at Worlds, there almost every single year. Made it out of groups, I think, last 3 years in a row at Worlds. Very strong player. A couple things I'm looking at for REKKLES is one, he played way more champions this year. than in past years. He's playing Ashe in the playoffs a lot. He was playing even mages. I'm wondering what he's gonna play. Honestly, I worked with him for a few years, so like I knew how he drafted back then, and I knew how we drafted for him, but I'm interested in what he comes up with this year because the meta is a bit different. Also, I want to see REKKLES this year because Twitch was played quite a bit in the play-ins, and this is a REKKLES special for sure. Really good Twitch player. He was busting out this champion as like a pocket pick, even when it was non-meta, so maybe I would like to see the REKKLES Twitch again. Next player on my list is going to be Caps, of course. I don't think any top 10 players to watch list would be completed without putting Caps on the list. Really aggressive, roaming player. This is my actual favorite thing about watching Caps play is how active he is. Like, he will give up a full wave of CS if he feels his team will get more on like a slow push on the side lane, or if he feels he can get more somewhere else on the map. But I'm interested to see how active he chooses to play, if he's gonna pick roaming champs, if he's gonna pick champs for himself, and how he kind of fits onto the G2 roster and like what their actual strategy is going into Worlds, because they played a lot of different stuff this year. Caps wasn't even playing mid for half of the year, so that one's interesting to me. Next player, have to put an NA player here, so I'll go with BJERGSEN. You have to have at least one NA player on the list. I want to see if he pulls out the Zilean, actually, in the World Group stage. That's something to me that's interesting, because I don't think the pick is power level super strong, but it's kind of just like an average champ right now. But he really, really makes it work in these clutch situations, and especially if a team is not used to playing against champs like Zilean, it's a champ that can really turn the tides of like a whole game alone. So that's one thing, and kind of why I put BJERGSEN on the list is if he just locks in Syndra and plays a normal game of League of Legends, probably won't be super entertaining, but maybe if he busts out a pick like Zilean, it could be interesting. Last player on my players to watch list is gonna be SELFMADE. One of my favorite players to watch just in general because of how creative and aggressive he plays in the jungle. Like if SELFMADE sees a kill on other side of the map, he will just leave his pathing and just go and just flash on the guy. He'll just go dive, do wolves into level 2 dive bot. You know, if he thinks the play is there and his team is playing aggressive, I think it really helps. He has players like Bwipo and Hilly that can play really aggressive and set up these sorts of plays. He also has like special picks like his Evelyn, for example, where he was a very famous Evelyn player before it even came into the meta this year. So would love to see him pop off in some games, and interested to see how it goes. I think there's a lot of players you could put on this list. It's the World Championship for a reason. I think there's a lot of like very good players that I will be watching. You always go into these group stages with these ideas of what's going to happen, and it often rarely exactly matches this. So should be fun for sure. If you want to see my predictions of who I think teams-wise will make it out of the groups, we have that video as well. So thanks, guys.